Good.
I'm a little bit intimidated coming after yesterday's speaker, but I'm going to do my best. 2014 was my first year in Yeshiva University. I was learning in Rav Meir Twersky's shir, and the plan that year was that we were going to be learning Maseches Ksubis. So the year started off regular up until November. In the middle of November, Rav Twersky's brother was killed in the Har Nof terror attack. Rav Twersky flew to Israel for the Shiva. He came back, and we were told to bring a Rambam Sefer Mada to shir that day. Rambam Sefer Mada is not really connected to Ksubos, so we were a little confused. And Rav Twersky spent the next 6 months going through sugyas in Hilchos Kiddush Hashem. The fifth parak of Yesodei Torah, the first section of the Rambam, is where the Rambam discusses the halachic topic of Kiddush Hashem. We spent at least 2 months just on that one parak of the Rambam, and then we went farther afield looking at sugyas and different gemaras related to the topic of Kiddush Hashem. So I want to share one insight that Rav Twersky taught over those couple of months, which he quoted from his great uncle, Rav Aaron Soloveitchik, Rav Yosef Dov Levi Soloveitchik's brother. I actually heard it corroborated from a Talmud of Rav Aaron Soloveitchik from Brisk, Chicago, a few years later. So this is coming from two different teachers. This idea comes from the very end of our parsha. We know the end. The parsha deals with the Akedah, incredible story, a challenging story. Avram and Yitzchak, the pasuk specifies how together they were. Vayelchu shnehem yachdav, while they're going up to the Akedah. The Akedah happens or doesn't happen, and that's how it happens. And at the very end, this is 22:19. The pasuk says, "Vayashav Avraham el ne'arav, vayakumu vayelchu yachdav el Be'er Sheva, vayeshev Avraham bi'Be'er Sheva." I know this is not the most interactive forum, but I'm going to pause for 5 seconds to let you think what exactly is missing from this pasuk. Maybe who is missing from this pasuk. Vayashav Avraham el ne'arav, vayakumu vayelchu yachdav el Be'er Sheva. Where's Yitzchak? Right? We know that Yitzchak was not offered as part of the Akedah. So what happened to him? Why is he not mentioned in this pasuk? So there's actually a Rashi later on in the Torah and somewhere in Sefer Vayikra and Bechukosai, I think, pasuk says, "V'zacharti brisi Yaakov, v'yafes brisi Yitzchak, v'yafes brisi Avram eskor, v'haaretz eskor." 3 out of the 4 elements listed in this pasuk have the word Zachor attached to it, but Yitzchak does not get the word Zachor. So Rashi quotes a medrash and says, why isn't there an element of Zechira, of remembering, attached to Yitzchak? Because the ashes of Yitzchak are piled up on the Mizbeach before Hashem. And therefore, Hashem doesn't need to remember Yitzchak because Yitzchak is always there. Now, wait a minute. I read the Parsha. I know what happened by the Akedah. Yitzchak didn't get burned. There are no ashes of Yitzchak piled up on the Mizbeach because Yitzchak walked away from the Akedah together with Avram. Right? Didn't he? Isn't that how we know the story? What is going on here? So why is Yitzchak left out? Vayashav Avram el Na'arav. Why don't we get a mention of Yitzchak here? What does Rashi mean with this medrash that the ashes of Yitzchak are tzavar v'yomed, are piled up on the Mizbeach before Hashem? Isn't that not the way the story goes? What is going on? So Rav Twersky quoted, and really this comes from Rav Aaron Soloveitchik, that what's going on here is that there are 2 types of Kiddush Hashem. There are 2 elements to the halachos of Kiddush Hashem. There's the Kiddush Hashem that we're most, well, okay, to put one thing aside, when we're talking about Kiddush Hashem, definitely in a halachic sense, we're not talking about behaving nicely on a school bus, on a school trip. That's not usually what we mean when we talk about Kiddush Hashem. The classic halachic sense of Kiddush Hashem is usually dying al Kiddush Hashem. There are multiple situations where we're called to die al Kiddush Hashem, representing the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. War happens to be one of those situations. And that's let's say, the immediate association that we have with the halachos of Kiddush Hashem. Rav Twersky pointed out that if you look at the very first halacha of the Rambam in this Hilchos, in Parak Hey Yesodei Torah, you get actually a different sense, that the Rambam stresses not dying al Kiddush Hashem, but living al Kiddush Hashem. that if a person also dedicates his entire life, not just in death, but in life, he dedicates himself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to Hashem. So he's not dying al Kiddush Hashem, he's living al Kiddush Hashem. His entire life is dedicated towards that one purpose. And it's actually a much higher level, it's a much more ideal opportunity to fulfill the laws of Kiddush Hashem, because it's not just a one-time thing, as incredible as that is, but it's something that you're doing day in and day out. So what happened to Yitzchak? What is this idea that the ashes of Yitzchak are tzavar v'yomed on the Mizbeach? It seems like the impact of the Akedah on Yitzchak was it pushed him to be so incredibly single-minded in his dedication towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the extent that as if he had died in that moment and his ashes were piled up on the Mizbeach, but he wasn't dying. He had not died al Kiddush Hashem. He was continuing to live al Kiddush Hashem. There was this single-mindedness that the Akedah had generated, which allowed him to take on this almost title, or take on this mindset, take on this lifestyle of living al Kiddush Hashem. Ratursky developed that idea from the Rambam. He brought it out of these psukim. That's where Yitzchak went, almost to the exclusion of Avram. Avram returned back home, but Yitzchak was now living almost on this different plane, living al Kiddush Hashem.
Shikach, thank you very much. Everybody, same time, same place tomorrow.